Solving not 1, 2, or 3 rumour engines, a big old prehistoric dump of Seraphon has just solved 4 rumour engines for us and given us some glorious models to have a look at. Let's go take a look. So a shed load of new Seraphon have just dropped, and spoiler alert, they are bloody brilliant. And before we dive any deeper, I will just say that during the live preview they did say this is not half of what's to come for the Seraphon, so that's pretty damn exciting. So the Seraphon operate under the control of the ancient amphibian arcanists known as Slann Starmasters, sorcerous servants of the Old Ones themselves. Wielding such prodigious power needs a mighty miniature to match, and this new sculpt is truly epic. And there's even a little Coatl flapping along the base there, so hopefully we might even see a bigger one of those in this latest update. So the Slann model is gorgeous, and Slann and the Old Ones featured way back at the start of Warhammer Fantasy in the world that was. This mage is seated on an exquisitely carved and levitating stone throne, and the model comes with a much wider range of versatility than I would ever expect from this kit, where you're probably only going to have 1, maybe 2 on some rare occasions. But it's great because it's so characterful, and they say it's loaded with artifacts, ancient accessories, and even 2 different skink attendants. And I'm a big fan of both faces. And look, even the Coatl is clearly a separate piece, so I think that's going to be a favourite amongst Seraphon collectors. And down here is one of the rumour engines that's been solved. So riding ahead of this magical toad are a totally new breed of Seraphon Cavalry, the nimble and deadly Raptadons. And of course we've seen these silhouettes before, and this new kit has the options to build javelin hell in Raptadon Hunters and melee-focused Raptadon Chargers. And during the live preview they did mention that those melee-focused, magical weapon-wielding skinks are actually going to pack a surprising punch. Now, being a fan of Warhammer Fantasy in the olden days, I really did love the skink Cold One riders, and I was actually slightly disappointed when the Saurus decided to mount up and were also given slightly rubbish models that weren't as good as the Dark Elf Cold Ones that had preceded them. So I'm delighted to see this upgrade. And there's something really creepy and fascinating about these modern feathered dinosaurs looks and these creepy faces that remind me of something out of like Death Note or something like that. Also worth noting, these do solve 3 rumour engines just from this one kit. So we've got the 2 feathers and we've also got the trailing feathers on the standard. Only slight gripe for me, and I'm not one to be super negative about anything Warhammery. The skink faces look a little bit odd to me, but you know, a head swap is pretty much the easiest conversion in the world, so by no means a deal breaker for such an excellent looking kit. Finally, behind this wave of swift-clawed Cavaliers stalk the Saurus Warriors. These cold-blooded cohorts remain the scaly backbone of every Seraphon army, and they've also benefited from some serious luxury time in the spawning pools. Look how fantastic these look. So finally we've got Saurus that look like Saurus artwork. They are chunky, they're broad shoulders, they're hunched over like little mini Godzillas stomping towards you. They look blooming excellent. And going back, I was a fan of the really old Saurus, and then I wasn't ever quite won over by the redo when they got their multi-part plastic kit. But these are tremendous models, and suddenly I find myself falling back in love with Saurus, which is a really weird sentence. They go on to note, like all Seraphon, they come in 2 varieties, the Flesh and Blood Coalesced and the Phantasmal Starborne, presenting us with 2 really cool looking colour schemes to denote both. And I particularly like the green one, which has the kind of retro nod to how I always saw Lizardmen or Seraphon back in Warhammer Fantasy. So here again we're seeing weapon options, which aren't touched upon more during the preview, but I suspect the tip of that spear could be the one that we've seen in the rumour engine as well. We're just not seeing it in this part of the preview. Finally and excitingly, we do get another look at the Battle Tome roadmap, and they tell us exactly when the Seraphon are arriving. They are the book that's arriving on its own in summer, so we've got plenty of time to see all the other good stuff that's arriving for them. I would imagine we will see an update to Temple Guard and Saurus Cavalry or Saurus Knights, the ones riding the Cold Ones, because these Saurus look completely different to the ones that existed before, so they deserve an update. And I would really like to see updated Kroxigor as well, because they are another creature from this line that has never quite lived up to the artwork or the lore behind them. Finally, worth noting that the other rumour engine which hasn't been solved, which is clearly Seraphon, is this gadget here, so I suspect that's going to be mounted on top of some beastie and we might see something cool and exciting. Back to the Battle Tome roadmap. Here's an image of what we could expect before, which I included in my What's Next for Warcry video. So this suggests that almost definitely that first order Battle Tome we're going to be getting is the Caradron Overlords, the 2 Chaos, again almost definitely Blades of Khorne and Hedonites of Slaanesh, and these ones that I'm listing here are just the ones that haven't had an update in this edition of Age of Sigmar. And finally, the 2 Death Tomes are very likely to be Flesh Eater Courts and Ossiarch Bone Reapers. However, Soulblight Gravelords kind of arrived just on the precipice of the new edition, and given that they've got a new warband in Warcry, I wouldn't be super surprised if we did actually see them instead of one of these 2. With a final note going to the fact that Games Workshop bloody loves making Lumineth battle tomes, so they could just throw in like another one of those instead of the Caradron, but I think that's less likely. So for more on celestial faring magical lizards, check out my Sundered Fate video. Or for more from the LVO, you can check out a video where I learn how to pronounce RBTs correctly. RBTs. Thanks for watching.